Hi, this is video number 2, and in this video we're going to concentrate on the backgrounds. We're going to use pencil crayon, we're going to use pencil and charcoal, and we're also going to use watercolour in different ways, in washes and in sprays and in dabs. So I'll, without further ado, I'll show you what to do. So the first background I'm going to show you is the background for the newspaper collage. And this is the newspaper collage, and the background we're going to do with pencil crayon. We're going to use different forms of hatching to create the effect that we want. So I've got 3 different coloured crayons. I've got 2 shades of green and a blue. So we're going to start off with the lighter shade of green, and we're going to take about, I don't know, roughly 1/3 of the paper, which is going to be the bottom part. So I'm just going to take 1/3 of the paper, and all we're going to do is vertical hatching going across the paper. Now children can do this because it's going from one point to the bottom of the paper, so we're not coming up too far. Then all we need to do now is to go back again and fill in the spaces in between. So just keep continually all the time working down from top to bottom and with vertical lines. So you're going to get that sort of effect, and I can still go across and put a few more in, so that carries on across the paper. The next technique we're going to use is for the sort of next third, or slightly more than 1/3. So that's going to be the middle part. So I'm going to start off by doing it diagonally. So we're going to do parallel lines diagonally coming across paper like so. And then I'm going to turn the paper around. This of course would go right the way across, and I'm just going to, this is called cross hatching, come across here to create a further set of lines on the diagonal. And I'm turning the paper again, so I'm now coming across the horizontal, and then I'm going to come across the vertical. So that's 4 different ways, diagonals going either way, and vertical and horizontal lines. And again, I won't do it all for you, I'll just show you the hatching there. So that's the cross hatching that we've done. And then the last one is the blue, and that's going to be the sky behind the background, and that's going to be all done on a horizontal. So it gives the sky a different texture. And with the sky, it doesn't need to be done too carefully, so you can leave little bits of white within the blue, which will give it a cloud. Now what I would do is to combine the two, so I'm going to use this crayon across like so, so I don't have any gaps between the two, and there's sort of an overlap. And I'm going to do the same up here. I'll use darker crayon, just coming into the sky like so. So it's diagonal, diagonal, cross, cross, cross. So we end up with this, sorry, it's better for me, with that view like so. And that just goes across the whole paper, and then that forms, when we add the details of the trees, it just forms quite a pleasant background to go on the top there. So that's that one, that's the background for the newspaper collage. The next one we want is, if I can just find the paper, is we're going to use paper that's already got masking tape put on, so you should be able to see the masking tape placed on there already. And now I've got masking tape at the top, so I'm just going to flip that round like so. So now I've got my, oops, let's just get that sorted out. So I've now got the masking tape. Just press that down because this isn't coming off. So I press the masking tape down. Now we've got a choice of two things here. We can either use charcoal. I've got some charcoal here. And what I'm going to do with the charcoal is this is going to be the bottom, this is going to be the top. So I'm just going to take the charcoal down like so. Just going to take the charcoal down. I'm just going to sort of outline the trees here with the charcoal. So I'm rubbing the charcoal along the edge using the masking tape as a guideline. So I'm going to come through. It doesn't matter if I go a bit wobbly either, because that's not going to make any difference. And I'm going to come down and outline the bottom of the masking tape here. So the masking tape is really just giving me a form of an outline. Oops, I haven't done this bit here. I can, if I haven't got charcoal, although there is plenty of charcoal at school, you need to use it quite sparingly. I'll just show you, I forgot to show you, it's this one here, and this is the what we're looking for here. That's the example of the charcoal one. So if you haven't got charcoal and you want to use pencil sharpenings, you can just sharpen directly onto the paper, and this time I'm trying to guide it in between let's put it in here. Now if you get the bits of wood come out, don't worry about it, because that will just blow off. And then all I'm going to do is to smudge that using my finger. So I'm going to blend that in, and I'm going to blend in between the trees with my finger. So all it is, if children don't like using their finger, you can get a bit of tissue paper or a soft bit of sponge. And that's interesting, that's picking up the bottom of the table where I'm rubbing it. So when I've got some graphite or charcoal on my finger, I can just rub that along one side of the tree. So I'm just coming down and using what I've got left on my finger. If I need some more, I'll just take it off of here. And I'm going to rub one side of the masking tape with that finger, like so. And then I can use the charcoal or whichever you want, and I'm just going to put some of those distinctive birch tree markings on. And some of them are slightly bigger, so you can use the side. So for these markings, I'm using the tip of the charcoal. For here, I'm just smudging that in. So quite simple, straightforward. And if you look at the trees, they sort of where the bark is peeling, and again you might have a slightly larger place there. So that's the background for the pencil sharpening charcoal, like so. And I'm going to put that one down here. The next one that we've got is a wash, and we're going to do, so it's quite a light coloured wash. So all we need is a piece of paper, and we need some watercolour. And what I've done, I've mixed up some watercolour already, and that watercolour is quite watery, so I'm not looking for a really colourful one. I've got greens and blues again like I had before. So I'm going to dip my brush in the water. I'm going to get some green paint on here, and I'm just going to paint the bottom, and it needs to be very watery, and so you can keep adding water to it. And the technique here is to do it really quickly, is not to spend too long on it, so children can practice this. So it's quickly, and if I want to, I'm just going to add a little bit more colour to that one because it's a bit wishy-washy there. And then if you want to, you can just add water over the top. As soon as it starts to crinkle too much, leave it. I'm coming along to a darker green that I've got now. So let's find darker green in here. Again, plenty of water. And I'm just going to very quickly go across the paper. Now the brush you choose is quite important here, as is the colours. Slightly darker here. And if you notice, I'm keeping it all trying to go side to side, and you don't have to fill in every last little bit because this is giving a very washy sort of. I'm going to take the green a little further up here. So by adding just watercolour, I can then dilute it with more water. With this technique, you have to leave it. This background needs to be left until it's dried. So we're just going to come along through here. Some more blue, and again the blue doesn't need to be too great. So all I've done is I put a very fine thin wash. Again, it's the two greens and the blue, and I'm going to have to leave that flat until it's time to add the trees and the detail. So I'll just put a little bit more green along there. So that's the one that's going to give us this. When it's dried, it'll dry like so, and then we can add the trees on the top. So let's put that down. The next one I'm going to show you is the spray. So I'm just going to move this one carefully out of the way and lay it flat so that it allows it to dry properly. Now for this one, we're going to use the same colours, but a different technique actually. When I do, I'll show you with this one. Because this is going to be a spray one, and I'll just show you this. It's a very fine spray. What I've done, I've masked the trees first of all, so that the spray doesn't get to where the trees are going to go. So to enable me to do that, I've put, just to show you, I've put 3 pieces of masking tape here. I've ran them over at the top. I'm not going to fold them over because at some stage I want to try and peel these off. And this is a technique that you're going to have to practice yourself. So don't put the masking tape on when you put masking tape on, just lay it on so that it doesn't stick too firmly. If you find the masking tape difficult, then you can cut pieces of paper and lay that on the background, which is white at the moment. So there, I'm going to put 3 other trees there on that background. So these are the ones. This one is the masking tape, which you can peel off afterwards to leave the white. And these ones are, if you've got younger children, this is probably more appropriate, just to have strips cut that are going to keep the spray at bay. It's going to form a resist. So I'm just going to put my old toothbrush, there should be toothbrush for you, in the water, and I'm going to put it into the wash that I've got here. Now I'm going to use a pencil with this to spray this. All the bristles now have got the paint in them. With children, it's actually quite good to, when you've got lots of paint on your paintbrush head, is just to tap it so you get the excess drips off so that it doesn't drip too much. And then holding the brush head down towards the paper, so it's quite close to the paper and at an angle. It's not vertically and it's not horizontal, it's like a diagonal and close to the paper. So all you're going to do is you're going to get a pencil or anything else that's hard, and you're going to pull the bristles back so that when they're released they flick forward. So I'm just going to show you that action here, and we're going to go over the, you go quite quickly, and as you go you need to move. You can see the results on the paper straight away. I'm just going to fill up again with some more green, tap it, get rid of the excess. I'm going to, this is a slightly different green, and because we're overspraying, and if you've got some paper on the table, it doesn't really matter that you've oversprayed the table or the paper. And then we'll put a blue. I'll just get some blue mixed up for the sky. I'll just put my brush in there and up at the top. And again, this is a technique that you can practice. Children will love it. The only thing is, all the time you've got to remember that this pencil or crayon or whatever you're using, piece of stick, is coming towards you. If you do it the opposite way, the bristles will flick up right into your face. So it's good to spray right over. I'll just put one last little bit on a different colour, and then if you wanted to, you could do just a little bit of, if you wanted to put some plants in or flowers within there, you can put a little bit of just red, so you get like a poppy effect within there. Okay, so if I carefully take those pieces of paper off now, you've got 1, 2, and because this is flicked, it's it dries very quickly. Now the masking tape is a bit more tricky, and this paper is a bit wet, so it's going to not play a game. Well, it's not going to. So if you peel it very carefully and always hold the paper down behind it, just holding it very carefully, and you have to, starting it off is the trickiest thing. And there we go. So there's 2 different ways of creating the spray. So we've got where we put the paper down or where we've put the masking tape down. And as I say, with the younger children, the paper's probably a better idea. Okay. The last background I'm going to show you is the paint dabbed one, which looks like this. It's sort of dappled. It's all the same colours that we used before, but a slightly different technique because we're going to brush the watercolour on, and this time the watercolour is going to be quite thick rather than the washes that we've used previously. So all I've done, I've more or less laid the masking tape on. I haven't pressed it down or stuck it down too hard, so I've laid it down into the shape of the trees that I want. And in this case, it's probably better to have masking tape rather than the paper, because the paper moves around as and when you brush. So I'm going to put my water spilt all over, never mind. I'm going to put my paintbrush in, and I'm going to start collecting the colour, and I'm going to use this blue, which I'm going to use at the top. So I'm just going to dab through like this. So it's a sort of I'm using a square tipped brush, a stencil brush almost, and I'm brushing over the top of the masking tape, and I'm making sure that I'm not completely covering that with blue. But I'm making sure that I do go over the masking tape, because that will give me a good edge when I come to finish. So I'm not wanting to colour it all blue, I'm leaving those gaps, and once you get the technique, those dabs will go quite nicely. So remember to leave some white to give it a dappled effect. It's knowing when to finish with this. So all I do then is I'm just changing the colour, so I'm going to put my brush in the water. I'm going to add the darker green, and I'll just show you, it's just that pushing paint dabs onto the paper, all the time going over the masking tape. Try not to push too hard on the masking tape when it starts to run out. And you can go back a little bit more carefully and just fill in some of the gaps. Again, we don't want all of that coloured in, otherwise we just paint it straight off. So those dabs are going to come in. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to mix a different coloured green, so that when I add on top of there, I've got a different shade of green. And this is where the little creative bit comes in, so you can choose. I might put a bit of yellow in that green as well, actually, so I'm just going to put a yellow on top to give me a more dappled difference in colour. So all you do is you take that down, and then you can go down with a lighter colour at the bottom, and it's just dabbing it on the paper. It's almost printing rather than painting. And in this one you can add, again, just different shades of greens by adding it with from your paint box, like so. And then if you wanted to, you could just add a tiny bit, just tiny bits of the red for poppies or any other wildflowers that you want, but that's really sparingly. So that's the last technique, which gives you the water dabs. And I'm just going to try and, if I can, because I didn't peel that down, it's always more difficult when the paper's wet, so it's easier to do that when it's dry. So there we go, we've got that resisted where the paper was, where the masking tape was. So again, have some fun with that, and oops, I've ripped that now. But it's more difficult, you have to be really careful, as I just showed you, when the paper's wet. So in the next video, video 3, I'll just show you how to add the detail to the trees as we go along. See you then.